Hello, this is National Chess Master Rats. I'm here at chess.com. This is a continuation of the series of Member Best Games. Members of my video lessons group are invited to submit a game of theirs, and I make videos. And I want to see their best game. And it's a pretty good thread. I've got a lot of videos made. There's a lot of responses in there. There's going to be a lot more responses. I'm going to keep busy with this as long as people keep submitting games. So if you're not in my video lessons group but found this video, join chess.com. It's free. Join my video lessons group. That's free. Just find it on my profile. Click to join. You're in. Go into the forums. Find the thread that says members post your best games here or something like that. You'll find it easy enough. You bring the PGN with you, and like if you play a tournament game, you type it out in PGN format. You can use a chess engine database thing to make PGN. All kinds of ways to get a PGN, and submit that so that I have a game score. And I'm working in order they're received. I was a little behind. I'm a little behind from a move that I did in December, and I'm catching up now. But I'll get to it in the order they were submitted, and you get a free instruction from me. And basically, I help you. What my program does, I say the key to succeeding in chess is to study and analyze your own games, because you want to find out your strengths and weaknesses and develop your analytical powers. And so you want to spend all the time you can analyzing your own games. That's your priority over studying other things, because if you watch my video lessons 1, I kind of lay it all out on PowerPoint, the visual and verbal presentation. I talk about, like, how much time do you have for chess? Everyone's time's different. If you have a lot of time, you can do more, but the thing to start with is analyzing your own games. And I'll give you some ways to analyze them. Some people aren't sure exactly how to do it. This whole series I've done is valuable, because even if it's not your game, go ahead and look at it, because you'll see the tips and suggestions. You'll learn a little bit about the openings. My whole website is just full of annotated games. The page for Team 4545 League has a lot of game commentary. It'll pick up a lot from that. It's all there. I do give private instruction for those that want accelerated learning, and they do get accelerated learning. You can see my coaches page at chess.com. I have a private group where I have one video series of all my early games, where my first rating was 1465, and I got 35 videos made in there. It's a $10 lifetime fee to get in and have access to those videos. You can really learn how players that I was playing against, 1100 to 1700 for the most part, how they play, what they think, and how did I develop from a beginner into eventually a chess master. So this is a pretty good series. And anyway, let's get back to this. Okay, so we've got the Ruy-Lopez and the exchange variation. The basic idea of this, they often call this Fisher's variation. White has given up the bishop pair. Eventually he's going to play d4, and the d pawn will be exchanged for the black e pawn. And it's what they call an endgame opening. In other words, white is steering directly for the ending. And if that pawn exchange happens, white will be left with a 4-on-3 pawn majority on the king side. Black will have the same, but the problem is black can't force a passed pawn on the queen side, but white can force a passed pawn on the king side. So white's going to win that king and pawn ending if all the pieces come off. Essentially, the plan is simple. White will eventually force a passed pawn on the king side, and black will have to keep an eye on it with his king. And while black does that, eventually white finds the right moment, runs his king into the heart of the black pawns, and starts gobbling them up. While black is then free to capture the passed pawn that white has created, but then usually the black king won't be able to go after the white pawns as quick as the white king is eating up the black pawns, and eventually white has a new passed pawn on the queen side and a winning game. He's going to make a queen. But because that's a long ways away, black does have some compensation, and the main compensation is the bishop pair. Black has 2 bishops. Okay, so let's take a look at this and see what happens. Okay. Now, I haven't studied this line in 30 years or more. I think it came up in another video I did recently. But there's a good move here, and I don't know what opening theory says today, but opening theory says the best move is to play h5. Now, what's happened in the last 30 years? I don't know. I have no clue. It's a waste of my time to go find out because I don't play the line from white or black. But I know one friend of mine, he was rated around 2000. He played this against the 2100, and he ate the piece, and he just got slaughtered in just a handful of moves. Well, white can probably resign here. He's going to have to return the piece immediately, because if the knight moves, queen h4 is just virtually winning. So, but the thing is, white's going to know the line. He's going to know what to do. Now, do I know what white's supposed to do here? Honestly, no, I don't. Does that make me less of a chess coach? No, not at all. Just because I don't know the answer and don't know theory, that has nothing to do with it. See, I'm not the one playing the line. You're the one that's wanting to learn chess. So I can't show you everything. You got to learn. The whole basis of my program is to teach you to teach yourself to be better. Now, what do? Well, you look this line up. If you have a book on the Ruy Lopez, you're going to find it. Okay? If you do a little research through some other books, you're going to find it. Nowadays you go on a database and you can get every position that that occurred on a master level from this position. You can get every game score, and then you just happily play through them one by one and get an idea for what's going on. You know, a specialized book on the openings will have more ideas and comments and things. So a good book on the Ruy Lopez should have this. No, it's time to invest some money in chess if you want to get better. If you're going to play the black side of this, then you want to learn the right way to play it. Okay, and I can't teach it here in one session. If somebody wants to take a lesson from me and learn this, I'll prepare for it and I'll go over it and I'll show you how to do this. But it's a waste of time for me to sit here and show you, because you don't learn by me showing, you learn by doing. So you got to burn the oil here yourself and look this up. Okay, so what black played, it's not bad. And like I say, the one drawback with this game, it's a 10-minute game. My preference was to get long standard time control games in here, but this is the game that Adam Pletty submitted, so I'm going to do a video of it. See, the problem with blitz chess, and even 10-minute, is that you really don't have time to stop and analyze. You're basically playing on patterns, and if you're good, you'll recognize weaknesses when they're made, and you can exploit them and usually win pretty easily. But blitz play just is bad for you. It leads to making impulsive choices because the clock is always ticking, and it's sudden death. You know, when time's over, game is done, and you're not going to play your best chess. Why would you want to play a game of chess where you're not going to play your best? Okay, if you play a time control of 40 and 80, you know, hey, you're going to probably play your best chess. For the lower rated players under 1600, 40 and 80 is just as good as 40 in 2 hours, 40 moves in 2 hours. But because you got time to stop and think and make your choices. So, but anyways, we'll see what happens here. Coleman is either a candidate master or a master. I've seen his name here at chess.com. They're roughly equivalent. It's not important what he is, but he's very good. All right. And now it's kind of interesting, a choice white didn't make. Now white has a plan in mind, but one drawback with the bishop c5 move and the way that black has done, he's surrendered his light squared bishop. I kind of want to point a couple things out. Okay, let's look at a couple things, advantages white has. Okay, see these 3 pawns? They're all on white squares. Okay, this bishop on c5 can never attack any of them. Well, it's got some mobility through them. Then it's not taking squares away from that bishop. You know, if black or white had a pawn chain, suppose everything was up 1, then this bishop doesn't have a whole lot of mobility. But the pawns are potential targets later in the game. So right now, white's got the better bishop. Black's is not bad. It's on a good diagonal, but this is the kind of position that white could play to um, give up the bishop pair and have a better knight. Let me illustrate. Now, what white does is knight d2, and this is not a bad move at all. But I'm trying to teach something and give you some things to watch out for, or something you can use on your own. Okay, I'll just play what I call fantasy chess. It's just one or two potential lines. Doesn't mean they're the best lines. Doesn't mean they're the forced lines. What I'm trying to show you is an idea and an objective. Okay, the purpose of bishop g5 is white's going to surrender the bishop pair to double another set of black pawns. Now, yeah, black can retreat his bishop, but then he's admitted his mistake. He put the bishop on the wrong square. Okay, so let's just consider one line. Okay, again, it doesn't mean it's the only line or a forced line, but let's just suppose everything comes off the board. Okay, now there's a great outpost for white to occupy, and it's a white square, and it's right there. It's f5. We need to get a knight there for white. How do we do it? Well, he's got to get there from either h4 or g3 or from e3. So it looks like, let's look at each one. 1, 2, 3, 4 moves away that way. Okay, clear it. 1, 2, 3, 4 moves away that way. Or 1, 2, 3, 4 moves away that way. So white's 4 moves away from getting a knight there. Black's got time to do things. And if it goes by way of e3, there's a chance black may chop it off with his bishop and say, I don't want that ugly bishop. So we're going to eliminate that. Now, let's try and get it to f4 or f5 as quickly as possible. Now, how can black prevent it? Well, really, he can't. If he moves his king up and a couple squares so that he can try to play f5, white's just going to play g4 and give black a couple really horrible pawns. So let's just develop for black for the fun of it. Okay, well, like I say, just one line, just to illustrate a point. And here's black fully developed, but that white knight's a killer. Black is not getting rid of it. Period. It can stay there the rest of the game, and this knight has a lot of influence on the black position. White's probably winning this simply because of that powerful knight. Now it's going to require a lot of technique, but this is how the international master beats the FIDE master. He gets a position like this and takes him down to an ending and demonstrates why that knight wins. On a lower level of play, you can still win with similar ideas simply because you have an active piece. You've played it the most active way, and then you just try to activate everything else. Okay, so let's get back to what happens. So if you can, you want to try to seek for outposts like this. Now, white employs a similar idea. He aims to get his knight to f5, and we'll see how that works out. Okay, so black castles, and see, now his knight's on a little tour. It's trying to get to f5. Okay, now here's a key point in the game. Black commits an error here, and we'll forgive him simply because it's a 10-minute game. But you don't want to make exchanges that help your opponent develop. By taking on e3, this helps the white knight get to f5. So the best move and oh, by the way, had white played bishop e3, black may very well and should chop that knight off for the bishop, and it's a goner. Then white's lost that piece, doesn't have it anymore. But he's still still has an uphill fight. White has an ideal pawn structure for his bishop, and the bishop is going to be better than a knight on the open board. But white's does have a little advantage here, but he's going to have to work for his point. Okay, so bishop e3. So black makes an error here. This just drives the knight where it wants to go, and now the game kind of gets a little difficult for black. G6. Okay, now it does keep the white knight out of f5, but it weakens f6 and h6, and the weakness on f6 is critical, as we'll see here in a few moves. Okay, white backs the queen up. Okay. Now the queen, it's no longer attacking the knight, so the black queen is free to move a little bit and try to get a better square. Although it's hard to say where a good square for that queen is. Maybe d4. One thing about going to d4 is that it accomplishes a couple things. If white plays f4, that knight's going to be pinned, which will cause white to have to spend a tempo to get the knight unpinned. That's part of it. It attacks a pawn, although maybe you don't really want to take that, because then white will swing a rook over to b1 and grab this and leave black with some really awful queenside pawns. But it also, maybe it's attempting to induce white to play c3. And then all of a sudden black has a target, a weakness that he can distract white with. So queen d4 is a possible candidate move, and those are the reasons why. So I leave it to black to sit down and evaluate what happens on each of those positions. I mean, I've given the basic ideas, but queen d4 is a better move than d7. Really, where does the queen go? Where it can go to e6. That's not a bad square for the queen, but once it's on e6, it doesn't even have a great deal of mobility. But anyway, white goes through with his plan, and then black says, hey, I see a weakness. It's on g3, and I'm going to occupy it. And white has plenty of resources here. White's fine. He can give up material here. The point is, like for instance, white could play queen f3 here, and then if knight takes rook, white plays knight g4, and suddenly the weakness on f6 that I mentioned is now of paramount importance. Let's see, black could play knight e2 with some nuisance value, but knight e2. Let's see, but then we get the check, and the king come. You got to be careful. Maybe king h8, and white just saves his queen, and then black needs to do the same thing, and then maybe just maybe white's gonna come down here to h6 and administer a checkmate on h7. So black has to step very carefully, and I don't think white played the best move here, but what he played was okay. But I think white had a little better. White played queen g4, and he had more winning chances with the other line, but black should be a defense in there for black. I'll let black try to solve it, because that's how you get better. You solve these things. Okay, if I show you, you don't learn a thing, but there is a solution. Now you got to go find it. Okay, so what black needs to do is take the rook, and he's temporarily up material, but the game is about even. Okay, so you should play take here, and then it's white's turn. Now where's black going to put the king? Just for the fun of it, I'll put on g7 and let you have this with check. I'm just helping black out a little bit. Okay, and that looks pretty even, but actually wait, no, white's not up a pawn, but black has the double pawns. White's got a very slight plus once again, but not much of one, simply because black has a double pawn. But with correct play, black should be able to draw this. But there was a gamble to go after material, and he didn't take it. Okay, so queen g4. Let's see, how did this turn out? Okay, so queen takes. Yeah, like I say, he needed to take there. He didn't. Black blunders with knight e2, and now the king comes out. Now white has two threats. Okay, White's threatening to take the knight, and White's threatening to play knight f6 check, winning material. And suddenly Black has given up the one thing that helped him out was the fact that he could win an equivalent amount of material. So now White has a winning game. But blitz chess, this is going to happen. Okay, now the king goes out of play, and suddenly White's winning. He's up material, and Black blunders again. He's got to go to e6 with the knight. Instead, he falls into a theme here. The Black knight. Where's it? Well, it's not really lost, but it's close to it. A4. Where are you going to put the knight? I guess you have to go back to a7. Yuck. But I guess Black blunders again. He takes this pawn, giving up a piece. But it's basically a lost game. But Black's going to come back here because White's going to go bonkers in a little bit. We'll see. I'll just kind of run through the moves. Gets the rooks off. And White can just pick his way to win this. If it wasn't a blitz game, Black should resign because anything can happen in blitz. And White decides to activate his king, and Black says, well, I better get a passed pawn. What else is there to do? There really isn't anything else to do. So White starts infesting his king into the heart of the Black position. And Black smells a rat. White continues. And Black sees if he takes the pawn that White will just play rook b1 and eat up every single pawn. And that's sufficient enough. So he delays with h5, and now White looks like maybe White's trying to come from behind and eat the pawns with the king, although he doesn't have to. So Black decides at this point, well, I better take it. And White's going for checkmate, and White got greedy here. We'll see here in a moment. So what else does Black have? Take. So he takes this off, and like I say, White gets greedy. The simple way to win is just bring the rook back to f1. If you put the rook back on f1, Black can't do a thing here. And see that pawn on d3? It's going to queen unhindered, and mate is just a move or two away. So White makes a horrible move here, and the game becomes drawn. But White doesn't take a draw, and I'll show you what I mean by a draw in a moment. Okay, so there's no stopping the pawn. It's going to queen. So what White does is he goes and threatens mate. And I actually drew a game back in 1972 against a good junior player who was on his way up. I was down a bunch of pawns, and he was busy pushing them, and I set something up like this, and basically I got a draw by repetition, and he wasn't too happy. That game, I made a video of it. It's in the Rat Pack for the Rat Pack members on my aforementioned video series, and along with all my other games. But essentially, okay, this is a draw, but we'll see. It doesn't end in a draw. We'll see in a moment why. Okay, so Black breaks the mate, and White checks, and now Black goes back, and the best move White has is to play rook f8. But in a tournament game, that's what White's going to play. Even if White is Black is, or let me rephrase that. If Black has somehow got 30 minutes on his clock and time to figure this out, White's going to take a draw because the move he plays loses or comes awful close to it. The only reason White played it, I'm sure, and it's one thing we don't know because we don't have a time record of the moves. It could be that Black has but 10-15 seconds left, and White's trying to win the game on time. And that is one strategy in blitz chess, to use the clock to your advantage and win on time. And some people say, "Oh, that's cheap. You're winning the game only because of the clock." Well, there's a counter argument to that, and that is that, yeah, but you used your time, and maybe you needed all that time just to achieve this position. If you'd been moving as quick as you could have been mated 10 moves ago. You wouldn't have come up with some of the moves you did, and that's a legitimate argument against it. But it still boils down to blitz is garbage. It's chess variant. It rewards people that think faster. It doesn't reward the best play. Chess is not a game that you put a quick timer on. Bliss is just for fun. So stay away from it. Okay, you're better investing your time in a long game. So White tries for the win. Now Black gets a queen, and it seems like Black plays this fine. He gets a check, and now white has to block his, or doesn't have to, but he chooses to block his pawn. And so it's safe time to grab this pawn before it starts running up the board. And now the only way for black to win this is the way he's doing it. Got to get a second queen. Okay, because the black king is kind of stuck, he's not going to be able to help administer a checkmate. So you need some more firepower. And let's see, we'll get down to it. If white tries to, and one drawback too is if white tries to make a new queen, black may just trade queens and get a new queen, and then white's missing his one trump, that passed pawn. So he stops and gives a check. And here's exactly what I'm talking about. If white makes a queen on the 8th rank, black will trade queens and make a new one. And then the other b pawn starts running. Eventually black will have 2 queens, and there's nothing white can do about it. So all white can do is keep the position complicated. Go make a threat. Threaten rook takes check. Rook takes on g6 check. Okay, so he makes the queen, and then I guess he decided not to take on g6, but he goes ahead and makes the queen, and black gives one check and white blocks it, and black ran out of time and game over, but clearly black is winning. This queen takes, and how are you going to take back? I don't care how you take back. I'll go pin your rook. What are you going to do? Okay, move your king. Here it goes, and black cannot, or white cannot stop that pawn. It's gone. If you play the rook behind it, anyone can see this is a simple way to win it. And you're not stopping the pawn. Black wins. So it's an interesting game. Black got very lucky to get this chance. Black can learn something out of the openings and get a better line against with this as the Lopez, but he'll need to know the line, because my best guess is if a player with white goes into this line, if the Lopez exchange, he's going to be prepared for bishop g4, and for when after h3 he's going to be prepared for h5. So you're going to need to know the line. If you don't know the line, then he's going to have a great advantage over you if you slip up. So it's one of the drawbacks with having to learn book moves. They take time to learn them all, and you got to know them well, because chances are your opponent's already spent the time. I found this out the hard way. Played too many book openings when I was in the 1800 range and couldn't go anywhere with them. So I ended up playing silly openings that I understood. Worked for me. They played into stuff I was familiar with, and I didn't have to worry about their preparation. But anyway, it's just a blitz game. Unfortunately, I hope no one else submits a blitz game, but it's okay that this one went in. I know Adam plenty. He's a nice guy. He's in a slow game. He's a decent player. We're playing an online game, and he's giving me hell. He's down to an ending with even material, but the game's a long ways away from finishing. Anyway, want to thank you for taking the time to look at this. Submit your game to this thread. I will get to it. One game per person. Pick your best, and take what I say to heart. It's not a critique of you. It's to help you. I don't expect everyone to play a perfect game. I mean, if you saw my games in the Rat Pack group, wow, I could have lost almost every single one of them, and I lost a number of ones I was winning, and I won a number of ones I was losing. Just very erratic. But it's how I learned, and chess is like that. Even when you're playing your best, you can just have a horrible day. But anyway, thanks for taking the time. We'll see you soon. Take care.